I rise today in strong support of HRES 744. I would like to thank Ted Deutsch, an esteemed former member of this House and the former chairman of the Middle East Subcommittee, for reintroducing this important legislation that has passed the House multiple times. I know that every member of our committee hopes the Iranian government will immediately seize the abuse of its own people and specifically end its longtime persecution of the Baha'i people. The last several years have been especially difficult for Iran's Baha'i community, as the regime in Tehran has ramped up its persecution of the community. The resolution before us today calls on the Iranian government to release all Baha'i prisoners, end its campaign of state-sponsored persecution, and stop discriminatory policies against the Baha'i community. As many of us know, those who practice the Baha'i faith have been persecuted in Iran since the religion's founding, but have suffered the most acute harassment since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Hundreds of Baha'i have been executed and tortured. To this day, the Iranian government denies Baha'is access to higher education, government jobs, and permits to work in 25 professions, and subjects them to arbitrary harassment, arrest, and imprisonment. It's long past time for this religious persecution to end, so I strongly urge all members to vote in support of this critical resolution. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bipartisan measure that condemns Iran's state-sponsored persecution of its Baha'i minority and calls for the release of all religious prisoners in Iran. In recent months, the Iranian regime has responded to the Iranian people's peaceful demands for change with violent suppression. The world has been a witness to that brutality. Sadly, Iran's Baha'i community is very familiar with the regime's cruelty. For years, the Baha'i have been subjected to the campaign of state-sponsored persecution. Baha'i across Iran face arbitrary arrest, forced disappearance, property expropriation, and economic discrimination every day. The regime's deplorable treatment of Baha'i shows how the Ayatollah denies Iranians access to basic human rights. Persecution based on religious belief is abhorrent and warrants condemnation in the strongest possible terms. This resolution is a reminder of Congress's continued commitment to promoting and protecting human rights in Iran, including freedom of worship and belief. I urge unanimous support for this measure and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman reserves. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I have no further requests for time, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman reserves. Gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
In closing, I would like to thank our former colleague Ted Deutsch for his long-time work to support the Baha'i in Iran and original authorship of this bipartisan measure. The House of Representatives will continue to work tirelessly to protect and defend the human rights of the Iranian people. I urge all members to support this legislation, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields. The gentlewoman from California is recognized.
I yield myself as much time as I may consume for the purpose of closing.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the Baha'i people of Iran have suffered enough at the hands of Iran's regime since the revolution. The brutality of Iran's government has unfortunately been on display now for weeks, for the entire world to see. This body will always defend human rights in Iran and around the world, and we stand in solidarity with the people of Iran who are calling for justice, dignity, and respect. Women, life, freedom. I hope my colleagues will join me and support this resolution. I yield back the balance of my time.